Hey, it's Jim from the Woodworking Corner. After I finish a project, I try not to end up with a lot of these offcuts. But when I do, it's time for some French cleats. Do you have a lot of offcuts and don't know what to do with them? Well, in this French cleat episode, I'm going to share with you two of my all-time favorites, as well as we're going to build two new ones. So stay tuned. I wouldn't be doing this guy justice if I didn't do him first. He's been around with me for about 6 or 7 years. So this is my drill holder. I added a second cleat in the back for added strength to hold him up, even though he hasn't moved anywhere since I put him together. He holds 3 drills, spot for my drill bits and stuff, big box of screws, my more common fasteners over there. I even have a drawer for countersink bits, Fastener bits, hole saw bits, and other accessories in here. On this side, there's a battery charger over here. So when I am on site, I have the ability to charge batteries. So one of the reasons why this guy is so big is that I wanted to have something that I could take with me if I had to go to a client site. So I had built this purposely this size so that even here I had slots to put in panels. So the panels would actually close this thing off. So this way nothing would fall out while I was in transport. The second one I wanted to share with you today is this one that I made for my leaf blower. It actually was a very, very simple design. It's only a couple of pieces of wood, but I wanted to give it a little extra flair. So I made some curves on it. And it stays here by the end of the garage. This way it's easy access to blow down some leaves in the driveway or give the shop a little dusting. How about now, let's start building some.
My intention is to use just these pieces of offcuts to make the first tool holder. With any of my tool holders, I like to lay out the tool or tools that I want to be in the tool holder. So my idea is to put the speed square in the corner. It will give me easy access from the side. This also gives me room to build a little compartment for my tape measure. And if all goes right, I will have room to make a little pencil holder on the left side. First step is to shape the little block into a triangle so that it fits the shape of the square. With my line laid out, I bring it to the crosscut sled. I am very happy with this sled because it has the ability to hold down small pieces of wood, which keeps my fingers far away from the blade. What I want to do here is to cut a groove in the middle of this piece. But this piece is smaller now, and it has to be upright. So, my thought is to sandwich this piece between a couple of blocks of wood. Keeping everything tight, I cautiously proceed to cut the groove. It worked. I am definitely not recommending anyone to do this. The width of the speed square required me to make another pass and do so with caution too. The speed square fits nicely in the groove in the block of wood. Now it is time to lay out for the tape measure. I prop the board up so I can get a better view of how it's coming out. A little measuring, and I cut some more small pieces to make a bottom and a couple of sides. With that done, the tape measure has a new spot. Next comes the pencil holder. It doesn't have to be too big, just big enough to hold a few pointy pencils, and it shouldn't be too tall or too short. The height needs to be just right.
Okay, I need to come clean on something. I did use a piece of wood that wasn't in the original pile of offcuts. As I was cutting the parts for the pencil holder, there was a lot of exposed plywood. I thought it would look weird if there was only a small piece of plywood in the middle. I had an offcut from my crosscut set build that was a couple of pieces of plywood thick. I thought that this would make the pencil holder look a bit nicer. Okay, time to sand all the rough edges before we glue it up. I am using 80 grit sandpaper here to make fast work out of the edges. I'm also keeping track of the orientation of pieces so that I'm not sanding an edge that's facing down towards another board. Now we can start gluing. My plan is not to use any nails in this build. I am using a little dab of wood glue and a couple of dabs of CA glue. After the dabs of glue, I use an activator on the opposite part and then stick them together. In just seconds, the parts are stuck together. Since the pencil holder is flush with the end of the board, I start on that end first. Glue the side piece to the bottom piece, then glue the middle to the side and bottom. Finally gluing the other side to the middle and the bottom. With that complete, I work on the two parts of the tape measure and glue them in place. When all the compartments are glued up, I glue the whole section to the backboard. Finally, I attach the holder for the speed square. I mark it out with a pencil and then using the same procedure for gluing it up. It's finally turning into what I had in mind for this tool holder. Last thing to do is add a cleat to the back of it. I also added a couple of screws to the shelf part. Even though the wood glue, when dry, will hold everything in place. Adding a couple of screws is just added security that the shelf will hold. With the final sanding, the tool holder is ready for its new home.
For the second cleat, I start by repurposing a hook that I made for an older tool holder that I am not using any longer. Using a multi-tool and a flush trim blade, I cut the hook away from the tool holder. At the workbench, I am using another offcut to use as a backboard for this hook. I lay out my line for the hook and layout where I would like to make some angle cuts. Once I have my lines laid out, it is time to cut them at the table saw. Here is what I was hoping the shape of this tool holder would look like. At the workbench again, I lay out my line again to make sure that I know where I want the hook to be. I sand the surrounding area with 120 grit sandpaper. Then drill a pilot hole for the hook. Now it is time for some glue. Using this process, you don't need a lot of wood glue. In fact, if you use too much, it will smear into the CA glue and make that glue ineffective. So only use a small dab or two when doing this. After gluing the hook to the backboard, I add a little piece to the back of the backboard. Since this is a shorter tool holder, this little piece will keep the tool holder from falling forward. After that is done, it is time to add a cleat to the back. As you can tell, I like to repurpose my old cleats too. With the cleat on, this tool holder is complete and ready for its home next to the other tool holder we just made.
And there you have it, a tour of some of my older tool holders along with two of my newer ones. Hopefully this video is giving you some ideas for your shop. Thanks for watching.